okay. Should we do this? We got to do it, right? Because this is our job every week. So, okay, let's just do it. Let's dive right in. Film Scoring Monday. Hey now. Good morning, PASW staff, clients, and our friends joining us. Thank you for joining us. And new people that want to come. We have a few people that haven't done it before or haven't done it in a long time that are starting to play along again. Really makes me happy when you guys do that. And there is a prize each time, so there's a little incentive there. Yeah. Hope you had a good restful weekend, because we did a lot of work last week with German music. Germany's, in German music, German culture, German art, German expressionism, it's intense, right? And I did want to point out that because we scored Nosferatu last week, and that had a German score. You guys came up with a very great dramatic score. So I did, we looked at Mendelssohn, Wagner, and Mahler. And then also Nosferatu's score was German music. So I did want to wrap it up, and we looked at how Mendelssohn was more classical in the realm. Wagner was romantic opera. Mahler was romantic symphonic music, symphonies. And then we're going to wrap that up with, so Wagner's interested in the theater, in opera. Nosferatu comes out 1922, long after Wagner is dead. But I wanted to start, middle, and end with dramatic German music. So I just wanted to tie that up, that we were looking at German music, but the Nosferatu score was dramatic German music, which it could sound a little bit like Wagner. Wagner's more intense, but Wagner's also dramatic. And of course, with Nosferatu's score, we needed a dramatic score, and you guys did that. So I just wanted to kind of bookend that, because I was thinking, I have so many thoughts, like after I leave our time together, and I just want to glue some of these ideas together. So since we did such heavy work, it's time to have fun. I'm all about fun. You guys know me. It's about having fun, and so I thought we'd do a really funny, one of the funniest comedies of all time to score, and then we're going to kick it real easy and nice with our swing music, revisiting some of that. So I think we deserve a little dessert after a lot of work from last week. So today we're going to look at the very funny comedy, Take the Money and Run. So I'm not promoting crime. Don't take the money and just run. That's not good, right? We don't do that. No, we're talking about one of the funniest comedies of all time. It's a mockumentary. It's mocking documentaries. That's where that term comes from, mockumentary. Maybe you've heard of Spinal Tap. That's a rockumentary. But Spinal Tap, is maybe one of the Monty Python's another one. This one, there were a lot in the 60s. A lot of people doing these things. It's a great way to look at satire on society and all these things, and to take things, less seriously, all that kind of stuff. This is filled with gags. This is Woody Allen. We've scored Woody Allen. We did Manhattan Murder Mystery a few months ago with that very suspenseful scene. This one's going to be completely comedic, so just, hold your horses. And, he's an auteur. We've talked a lot about Woody Allen. And we talked about the auteur theory, going back to Wagner and the opera, although this is film, of course. So Woody writes this with Mickey Rose. He's a childhood friend. They did Bananas together. They co-wrote this, but this is important because it's his first movie that he directed, 1969. His first movie before that was John Pace's film that he loves, What's Up, Tiger Lily? That's 1966. But he's more of a writer. He starts as a writer. But with this movie, Jerry Lewis declined to direct it. And so Woody said he'd do it himself, and he learned a lot, because now he's going to be a writer-director from here on out until, like, today. He's still doing it in his 80s. I just really want to share. I don't want to talk too much about why something's funny. That's very boring. Because we're not here to overanalyze. I'm here to share and impart some sort of, I don't know, not wisdom, but you know what I mean, rather than just analytically explain it. So I'll be interspersing things here. Janet Margolin's the very lovely lead in this too, and he marries, he does marry her. but she's the co-star. She'll have a few Woody roles coming up in Annie Hall and all that kind of stuff. But so Virgil Starkwell is Woody's character, and he's this bank robber. But he's inept. He's a doofus kind of. He's people think of Woody Allen as the intellectual, the character, and definitely by Annie Hall he is seen as that in the movies. Here he's just a bum kind of, and lovable in some ways, and people mistake Woody's persona on screen for what he's really like in real life. He's much more confident, and people see a lot of autobiography in his movies or biography in his movies, and it's not. It's self-expression. So I think sometimes people mislabel him or misconceive him, but he's expressive. And we looked at comedy with Marx Brothers. A lot of Marx Brothers influence on this, as we'll see. We also looked at Mel Blanc, and we kind of thought, well, even though he's a voice, a genius at voices, he was also probably a writer because he created those characters. So we've done a lot of comedy, and we've talked about the similarities and how comedy relates to music with timing. But we're going to see, and this was very important because he even talks about this, Woody, that, and we've talked about how music can save a movie. Here it didn't need saving, but here we're going to see how music really enhances it and makes it funny, because during test audiences, they didn't think that the movie was funny, in particular the scene we're going to look at. And it wasn't until Ralph Rosenblum, who was kind of Woody's mentor. He was this genius editor, did a lot of Sidney Lumet movies, the producers, and then teamed up with Woody. And they had a great rapport together because editor and writer and director, they all work very closely together. Many directors edit their own movies. Woody was inexperienced back then. But Ralph came along and said, you have great gags in this movie in particular. Let's add some music. And Woody, of course, is a musician, but didn't put the two together of how, because he was learning, he didn't go to film school. He got kicked out of NYU. He was learning from people like Ralph Rosenblum and Gordon Willis, who's the cinematographer, editor. Those two really were his mentors as a writer. He had the ideas and the vision, but those guys were his teachers, and he gives them a lot of credit in his life. Rightly so, because he says that they saved him a lot, especially Ralph, because music can save a scene. It can make it or break it. And particularly with comedy too, because I'm going to show you the scene without music, and I'll want to see what you think about if it's funny. It is funny. It's not as funny with the score, and this scene in particular was something that Woody cited as something that needed music, that Ralph said, keep the joke. The joke is great, but with just silence, it's not going to be as great. We're going to add some music to it. So we'll get to that. So the budget's like about $1.5 million, but it makes $3 million. It puts Woody on the map. This was a huge success. People loved this. Larry David was very influenced when he was in the Army. He saw this. People took notice because Woody was always a writer. Wrote for Sid Caesar, wrote a lot for TV shows, and gags, and a lot of things like that, along with Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks, they wrote wits on Sid Caesar. They would go on to become filmmakers on their own, in their own right. The score here, it's unusual because Woody never uses the composer, hardly ever. But in his early days as directing, he uses Philip Glass at Cassandra's Dream way later. But mostly all of his movies are filled with upbeat jazz. And he talks about if he were to satirize his own self, he would do the black titles with jazz music, because the black titles and jazz people hear that's his trademark, almost just like his glasses are his trademark. But here he gets Marvin Hamlisch to score it, and it's a good dramatic score. The scene that we're going to look at that's not Marvin's music. Marvin's mostly famous for a lot of music. He was a prodigy, genius composer and pianist. Chorus Line, he wrote Chorus Line, but along with other things. And he's one of that select, few that gets the EGOT, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Very few people have that. That's not why he's good. He's good because he wrote really good music. So yeah, so the movie was kind of a work in progress because it had a ton of gags, it had a good storyline, and as we can see, it's a mockumentary. There's narration on it.
They are ashamed of their son's criminal record and so wear disguises.
He was a good boy. He was a
Oh, come on. If he was a good boy, why are we wearing these?
Maybe I've shown you this before, but I mean, this scene is such a classic example of Woody's wit. Aside from it being completely ridiculous, I mean, this movie's ridiculous. Just like the Marx Brothers were full of anarchy, a little bit of rage too, especially with Groucho's humor. There was a lot of anger there. There was suppressed rage in a sense, making fun of things that I love, that we love. Nothing's better than kind of goofing on something. It's also hysterical, but it's also, and this is why people say, oh, a brilliant artist, brilliant comedian. Well, why do we just say that? Is it fancy? If you say somebody's brilliant, then somebody hears you say, man, like this guy might be brilliant too because he just said somebody else is brilliant. Here's why. That scene is so funny, and again, I don't want to explain why something's funny, but it's such a great metaphor for life. We're always trying to catch up. We're trying to fit in with life. Well, here, literally, he's not fitting in. He's got the wrong instrument. And so it's such a great metaphor for other things. It's funny because you wouldn't have a cello in a marching band, of course. That's not the right thing. But he does, and he's trying to fit in and he's not. It's just, I always, whenever my life isn't working out well, I go back to the scene a lot and I'm like, maybe I'm on the wrong shift. Maybe I have to reshift it, rethink it. Maybe it's the wrong path. Everything works out for a reason, but then sometimes you have to, sometimes maybe we're playing the cello in a marching band, but that's okay. That doesn't mean we're wrong. We need to play the cello in the orchestra, right? So it's this this kind of misfit. It's not fitting in. I just had to say that. Another great scene is the bank robbery with the gun.
So I'm pointing a gun at you.
That looks like gub. That doesn't look like gun.
No, it's gun.
No, that's gub. That's a B.
No, see, that's an N. It's G-U-N.
I hope some of this is funny to you guys. It makes me so happy seeing young Woody Allen at his prime doing great jokes.
Dude, I never saw anybody so embarrassed.
I'll never forget your face. Right?
My face, you dropped the towel.
You dropped the towel too?
Let me have your watch, will you?
Yes, sure.
So the scene we're going to look at is where he falls in love with with Janet Margolin's character, and he's very romantic, as you can see.
I can't tell Louise that I was in jail and that I rob and steal and never did an honest day's work in my life, because a lot of people hold those things against you. But she was so sweet. We just walked in the park, and I was so touched by her that, I don't know, after 15 minutes I wanted to marry her. And after a half hour, I completely gave up the idea of snatching her purse.
So the scene we're going to look at doesn't need much of a setup because it's going to be obvious. He's getting ready for the date with Janet Margolin's character. He's in his hotel room, and I want to show you the scene without the music. Okay, it's funny, right? But it's awkward. And you get the gag at the end because he didn't have his pants on that whole time and he almost left. That's good. Could it be better? Yes. Ralph Rosenbluth came in and said, Woody, the joke is good. People aren't laughing at the test screenings. That's because you don't have the right music. You need a little bit of Dixieland to kick up the energy of the scene and the hilarity of the scene. And let's try this. So this is the scene with the score. I mean, 1,000 times better, right? I mean, it's funny without it, but not the music just completely, the whole gag, now you're laughing. It completes it. And then after that scene, Woody was like, maybe music can help me here. I have great jokes, but help me as a filmmaker, because with film, you have the ability, just like with these classes, I have the ability to edit and cut anything I want. So what you're seeing is, you know, somewhat polished. I mean, I don't do a lot of cuts, just so you guys know, but I mean, that's the magic of movies. So as I think you would agree, it's so much better. So we've seen the scene already without the music. Don't need to show you that. I want you guys to come up with a Dixieland piece. So we know Dixieland music. We've talked a little bit about Louis Armstrong. We didn't do a class because he's too famous. It can be Louis Armstrong if you want it to be, but it should be from the era of the 20s, 30s, 40s. And something upbeat, something funny. It should be funny Dixieland instrumental music, because we need to keep it funny with the scene, because the scene is funny as it is, but we need that music to make it extra funny, because it works so well with that. So come up with something like that. Send me some ideas. You guys know the drill. If you're new, just listen to some music, send me a text or email of a link of something on Spotify or YouTube, and say, I think listening to this music, this makes me laugh, and send it to me. And you know, you could be part of the you can be an award winner. So I hope you enjoyed that. This week is swing music, swing week, and we'll call it swing week. And you know, we'll have so much fun here. So hope you enjoyed Woody Allen's Take the Money and Run. So much fun. And I'll see you tomorrow. Okay, bye.